Hello and welcome to the Al-Attiyah Foundation Podcast. My name is Naweed Jawakil and I'm delighted to be your host today. It's an honor to welcome Mr. Julian Pouget, President for the Middle East and North Africa Exploration and Production at TotalEnergies. Mr. Pouget has had an extensive international career at TotalEnergies, where he has held senior leadership roles across different continents, guiding major energy and development projects that bridge innovation and sustainability. Mr. Pouget, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great, we're very glad to have you here and thanks for giving up the time. Let's start then. Tell us a bit about yourself and your current responsibilities at TotalEnergies.
So I joined TotalEnergies in 2016, and I was in charge to starting up our business in the renewable space, so solar and then wind and offshore wind. And the idea was to bring it at a major scale. And I have to say that seeing today that this ambition turned into more than 30 gigawatts of gross installed capacity in renewables makes me quite proud of it for my teams. I later led our operations across Asia Pacific before taking responsibility for the Middle East and North Africa for exploration and production in 2023. It's a very key region for our company with deep historical meaning. This is where we were born in 1924, actually in Iraq, and then we expanded quickly in the region. Today, our upstream operations in the region extend across 10 countries. And obviously, these countries are home to some of the world's most competitive energy resources. And my mission, obviously, is to support our teams in delivering our projects safely, on time and on budget, while reducing emissions and creating value for our partners, national oil companies, for the countries and for the communities.
So lots of international experience with Total since you joined in 2016. Before that, though, you worked for several institutions and corporations, including the French government and General Electric. Give us a sense of some of the key experiences in those roles that most influenced your approach to managing complex energy projects today.
So every region I had the chance to work in has shaped my views about leadership, and I have learned a lot. I will just take maybe two examples, one from the past and one more recent. The one from the past is when I was working for Alstom. I was based in China, in the city of Wuhan at this time, and where with my company, we were actually supporting the Chinese authorities to build their major fleet of nuclear power plants. And, you know, I could feel the scale of what China can do and bringing at the same time the competency we had at Alstom in this field. More recently, and I will take an example of this year, we'll come back to other projects in the region, but I think it's also interesting to mention what we are doing today with Cyprus gas field, which is called Kronos, which is a discovery we made recently. It's operated by Eni. And we signed this year an agreement with Cyprus and Egypt to develop this field. And the plan is to leverage Egypt's existing infrastructure to liquefy the gas from Cyprus and supply it to Europe. And obviously, these arrangements are complex, but they are also quite fascinating because, you know, this illustrates how we can use our various positions in the region to eventually bring a tangible and concrete contribution to, in this case, Europe's energy security at a critical time.
Yeah, lots of excitement around that project. I recall it earlier this year, but also the Eastern Mediterranean in general, where I know Total is pretty active, TotalEnergies. Looking at another country, though, in the Middle East, Iraq, you mentioned nearly just over a century ago where it all began, but there's a new landmark multi-energy project you're looking at there, looking at energy efficiency, environmental impact, and local employment. Give us an overview of the initiative and its importance, not just for your firm, but Iraq as well.
This is really a major project for us, and I believe for Iraq, for several reasons. It's a multi-energy initiative, which is, by the way, emblematic of our corporate strategy. It takes place in Iraq, and as I said earlier, it's the country where our company, TotalEnergies, was born 100 years ago in 1924. So it's very important to our company. So the project actually combines 4 key developments, which are fully aligned with our strategy and obviously with Iraq's objectives. First, part of the development of this project is to redevelop the Ratawi oil field to enhance production. So we brought it already to 60 kilobarrel a day of capacity, and the plan is to bring it up to 210 kilobarrel per day. The second part is to capture and use the associated gas that is currently flared in the region, so part of it, in order to treat it in a gas treatment plant and to inject it in the Iraqi gas grid to produce electricity. The third project, which is also a major project for Iraq, is to build a very large seawater treatment plant, and which will ultimately preserve freshwater resources. And the last, but not least, important part of this multi-layer project is to deliver Iraq's first utility-scale solar farm, which will be 1.2 gigawatt peak of green power injected in the Iraqi grid. So you can already see the progress of this project, and I want to thank our teams and our partners, QatarEnergy. We are in Iraq together with QatarEnergy, and BOC and SGC, the 2 national companies in the region of Basra. Thanks to this close collaboration, by early 2026, we expect to reach first oil of first increase of the production of the Ratawi field, first electricity from the solar plant, and the startup of an early gas treatment facility that we call Ratawi Gas 25, which will start eliminating part of the flaring at Ratawi. So we are very proud of this project, and as I said, it's, I think, key for the Iraqi authorities. We get a lot of support. It's key for our partner, QatarEnergy, and it's key for us also for historical reasons.
Yeah, and let me just pick up on that Ratawi oil field developments, because the idea of achieving no routine flaring could be watched closely across the industry. Tell us about some of the technologies and operational practices you'll be using to try and achieve that ambitious target.
So indeed, the redevelopment of the Ratawi oil field is a cornerstone of this project. And thanks to the construction of this gas processing plant I was referring to earlier, Ratawi will become one of the less carbon-intensive fields in Iraq. So we are building this giga-scale gas treatment plant, which is able to treat 300 million scf per day of gas, right next to the Ratawi field, to capture gas which is currently flared not only by the Ratawi field but by 2 other fields nearby. We are not partner of. And this gas will be processed and injected into Iraq's grid to generate electricity in a country that faces sometimes power outages. So it's quite important, and I can tell you that we have a lot of attention from the Iraqi ministries on this project, and it's key for us because it will allow reduction and elimination actually of routine flaring, but also for the authorities and for the electricity generation. Over the lifetime of the project, we estimate that this will allow to avoid approximately 125 million tons of CO2 emissions, which, as you can see, is quite massive.
Yeah, that's an enormous figure. That common seawater project you mentioned as well, that's significant because where Iraq is situated, obviously very arid region, intense heat for anyone who's been there in the summer. I think they know, and water scarcity a major issue as well. Tell us about the key innovations and sustainability benefits of that project. You said that you were looking at processing and delivering 5 million barrels per day of seawater in the near future.
So we have just kicked off the construction of a massive seawater treatment plant. We call it the CSSP project. So it's a common seawater project, supply project. And this project will generate 5 million barrels of water per day coming from the sea, treated and fit for injection in all the fields of southern Iraq. And actually, it will replace water, which is today partially fresh water drawn from the Tigris, Euphrates, and local aquifers. And we estimate that it will free up around 250,000 cubic meters of fresh water each day, for which will be fit for irrigation and local agriculture. So you see it as a massive impact. It will, at the same time, allow to sustain oil production in southern Iraq, and at the same time, allow to free fresh water for irrigation and agriculture. It's a very long-awaited project for the country, and we are very proud of bringing our project expertise to make such a project and such a complex initiative a reality. We have managed to bring it to a final investment decision and to start construction. Ultimately, we'll transfer operatorship to Basra Oil Company, leaving a lasting and I believe a very positive impact for generations to come.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing with both of those projects, I think, is the environmental significance and stewardship. Does that sort of indicate, I remember many of our listeners will remember the rebrand from Total to TotalEnergies and this more responsible company that you were looking to set up, focused on renewable energy and cleaner energy in the future. Is this an indication of how TotalEnergies is looking at projects elsewhere around the world and the commitment to responsible production?
Yes, so the change of name of Total to TotalEnergies is because we want to be, and we are now, a broad energy company with two pillars of growth. One is in oil and gas, because the world needs oil and gas, and we grow it responsibly with lower emissions. And at the same time, we are developing what we call an integrated power business, because electricity needs grow, and part of this business is made out of renewables, but we also add to this flexible power, because obviously you need power the whole day and not just when wind and solar are there. So this is two pillars of growth, which are key to the company. As I said, while growing our production, we are continuously working to reduce our emissions. Last year, we achieved 36% reduction compared to 2015, thanks to a lot of efforts in terms of energy efficiency, reductions in flaring, very key for us, electrification, and the use of renewable power where it makes sense, and obviously optimizing our operation. But the main area of focus is on reducing our methane emissions. I believe this is key for our industry, and we have a target to reduce our emissions by 50% by 2025 compared to 2020, and actually we have already met this target with 1 year in advance, and now we are tightening this objective, and we have worked a lot on this methane reduction initiatives. And as an example, we have decided this year, and already almost implemented, it will be done by the end of this year, to roll out a very large program of permanent monitoring of our methane emissions on all our operated sites. And we also encourage our partners to do it in our sites operated by others. As an example, in Iraq, where we operate the GGIP project, we have been discussing earlier, we have already completed the installations of our methane emission detectors and equipment on our side, and we are doing that on all our assets, all sites across the world, to detect immediately any methane leak, any fugitive emission of methane, and so that we can react and fix them without any delay. And at last, we are working a lot on eliminating routine flaring. We already spoke about the case of Iraq, but we are doing it on all our sites with huge progress. And we have already eliminated a very large chunk of our flaring compared to what we had only, I would say, 15 years ago. So a big area of focus also. So you see methane emissions in general, focus also especially on methane and flaring.
Yeah, and interesting figures. I think we've had a roundtable with CEOs recently in Qatar, and I think the one thing that jumped out was the fact that decarbonization, if it is to gather pace, especially given the setbacks it's faced recently in the last year or so, is that it needs to make financial sense. So it's encouraging to hear those sorts of figures and targets being met. I'm going to move from Iraq to another part of the Middle East, Oman. There's a Marsa LNG project there that's been described as groundbreaking, looking to produce LNG with one of the lowest greenhouse gas emissions anywhere in the world. Walk us through that project's design and how this model could serve as a blueprint for low carbon LNG production elsewhere around the world.
So Marsa LNG is a project we are very proud of because it will be, as you said, one of the lowest carbon intensity LNG plant in the world, with a GHG intensity below 3 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per barrel of oil equivalent. So it's less than 1/10 of the average LNG plant carbon intensity in the world, which stands around 35 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per barrel. So the plant is fully electrified. So it's key to achieve this, and it is fed by electricity generated by renewables for 100% of the electricity needs of the plant. By the way, electrification not only brings this reduced intensity, but also reduces the consumption of feed gas as fuel gas. So you have more LNG at the end with the same feed gas. It has higher flexibility, and probably we hope it will reduce maintenance cost. So it brings a lot of benefits. This plant is a medium scale. It has a capacity of 1 million tons per year. TotalEnergies holds 80% alongside OQEP, and maybe we'll see if there is a second phase to come. So Marsa LNG has another interesting feature, which is that it will be the Middle East's first marine LNG bunkering hub. So it will support shipping industries, energy transition, so the reduction of the emissions of transport, because maritime transport, because as you know, LNG emits much less than the other fuels that are currently used. So you can immediately reduce by approximately 20% compared to fuel oil. Also, I can say that Marsa LNG perfectly exemplifies our multi-energy strategy. It showcases how we can help hydrocarbon producing countries move toward more sustainable energy path. Obviously, there is a lot of support from the Omani Ministry of Energy and Minerals, a lot of support from our partners, notably OQENP, OQAE, on this project. And we leverage here on our expertise from gas production to LNG bunkering and solar power. So we can bring all a bunch of our competencies to the country to make this project a reality.
Yeah, no, small scale, relatively mid-scale now, but I think it's definitely one that could be closely watched in the years to come, particularly with the role of gas as a transition fuel if the decarbonization effort gathers pace. You touched on an important point there, and you've mentioned a few times so far, whether it was Cyprus, Egypt, or Qatar or even in Oman and Iraq, the importance of partnership and working with governments and other stakeholders there. For many who know Total's presence in the region, TotalEnergies, that's been an important factor in the success, I think, across the Middle East and North Africa. How do these projects align, do you think, with your regional energy transition strategy? And how important are those partnerships with host countries?
So, we have been present in the region for decades, as I said, from the inception of our company. And I believe it makes us a trusted and very long-term partner for our partners, the national oil companies. I believe they value our expertise in producing oil and gas efficiently, safely, and with low emissions to contribute to manage large-scale projects. And I also believe that they see interest in the competencies we have developed in new energies like renewables and in the electricity field. So this we see in a lot of countries. You mentioned Oman, you mentioned Iraq, and it's applicable to, I would say, most of the countries in the region. And obviously, this aligns perfectly with our strategy, which, as I said, is to develop, to grow two pillars, oil and gas. And there is no doubt that the region is doing a lot of efforts to grow its production in oil and gas because it is needed. And by the planet, we see the demand growing. And at the same time, we support the transition. And if you take Iraq or some other countries, it's almost the start of the renewables in these countries, and we bring solutions immediately at scale, which I believe support these countries in their transition. So I think it's a really win-win cooperation, and obviously as TotalEnergies, this fits perfectly within our strategy, and our strategy has been shaped historically in this region for a long time. So there is no doubt that the alignment is excellent.
Yeah, and I think it aligns perfectly with what many, at least in the Gulf, are trying to do with diversifying their economies and looking at industries that they'll be important in the future. Obviously, these huge industrial bases that they have, but they realize the opportunity in becoming indispensable in the world of clean energy and the capabilities to do that. So it seems like a natural fit. I wanted to talk a bit more, if we can zoom out a bit and look at the global geopolitical and environmental dynamics. What's your outlook based on your extensive experience in the industry and elsewhere on that balance that we hear so much about: energy security, economic growth, affordability, and sustainability over the next decade? And do you feel a changing approach towards sustainability in the oil and gas industry currently?
So you're right. The world is changing rapidly, and geopolitics often drives the energy landscape as much as economics. At TotalEnergies, we are very clear on our strategy. Over the next decade, will remain consistent on this somehow differentiated strategy, including our diversification in electricity. So with our two pillars I mentioned, so oil and gas and electricity integrated power. Obviously, today's environment is more uncertain than it was in the past. So, and this, I believe, requires to be even closer to our stakeholders, to our partners, to the local governments. And it is particularly true in the Middle East region, I believe. So consistency is key for us, and consistency means consistency in our strategy, but also consistency in our very strong ties with the countries we operate in. And once again, it is very true of this region. So you mentioned sustainability. So obviously, energy security has become, again, a very key theme over the last few years. And it is quite normal. It had been a bit forgotten, but it's key. Energy is a key factor of human development, and it's key for all countries. So there is no doubt about that. And it's good to see that energy security has now there is a widespread consciousness of the fact that it's very, very key. And at the same time, we are working with our partners on sustainability, on emissions, as I said. And we can mention all the initiatives we are part of, or GDC and others. But anyway, beyond these initiatives, we are working together with our partners, as an example with TotalEnergies, to share our respective best practices. And this is especially true of how to measure and abate methane emissions, because we are convinced, and I know it is a case of all the national oil companies we are working with in the region, that this is key for our industry to be able to reduce methane emission. And by the way, methane is being gas. It's it's one of the resources we are trying to produce on market.
And you said consistency is important there, which I think is a significant factor. A couple of areas where there has been consistency, or there seems to be agreement and alignment in this growingly uncertain world, the issues of sustainability when it comes to regional blocs like the European Union and the Gulf Cooperation Council. Their strategic priorities for both of them. In that context, then, what role do you believe private corporations like your one can play in advancing these shared objectives? And do you expect more alignment between the two regions as we move forward?
I think that our companies, they act a bit like a bridge. Obviously, on the economic side, on the energy side, it's particularly key. Obviously, Europe needs energy. Obviously, GCC has very competitive energy, and the energies which are needed in Europe, and obviously LNG is a key part of it. So I think obviously the role of companies is not to a political role, but clearly we contribute, especially through the energy flows, to building bridges, necessary bridges between these two great institutions and regions.
And I'll finish on a more personal note. A few minutes left. Then you've led energy projects, transformative ones, as we've been hearing around the world. What is it that continues to motivate you in your work, and how would you define leadership in an era of transition towards a more sustainable energy future?
So, when I stepped into this role, I decided to learn a bit of Arabic. So I will not try my very little bit of Arabic, but I saw once a proverb which really stayed with me, which I will just translate into English. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but which states basically that one single finger cannot wash the face. And I think it says a lot about the strength of the collective and how we can work together to achieve success. And I have to say that I have seen several very impressive programs. I mentioned the China building a huge nuclear fleet, but I have to say I'm quite impressed by what we witness today in the region in terms of mega scale projects. Just to mention probably one of the most impressive ones, if not the most impressive one, is what QatarEnergy LNG is doing today in Ras Laffan, building this huge fleet of LNG trains, allowing to bring the capacity of the country up to 126 million tons per annum. And when you look at the scale of such project and the ability, with, I believe, our contribution, as well as the other partners, to bring such project to life in a very efficient time, it's truly impressive. And when you know that this contributes to the energy transition by bringing gas to the world in the form of LNG, to know that it brings activity to a lot of people, and obviously it contributes to the economic growth of Qatar. All this is very motivating. We mentioned also Iraq. Iraq is another example where we can bring together with TotalEnergies, we could bring this project to life. Huge projects, 4 in one project, and this will bring activity to the people of the Basra area. This will bring improvement in terms of water management, in terms of electricity generation, clean electricity also with renewables, with the solar farm, reduction of flaring, elimination for field of flaring. So all this is truly motivating, and what I'm very impressed of is the scale of what this region can bring, and I would say the energy, not in terms of molecules, but people energy we can feel in this region, which I like a lot, even if I still discover it after a few years only.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a region that's very much on the move and determined to play a more significant role in how all of the world's future is shaped in the years and decades to come. But Julien, we'll leave it there. On behalf of the Al-Attiyah Foundation, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights on innovation, sustainability, and some of those interesting stories around the evolving role of energy in the Middle East and North Africa. We wish you and, of course, TotalEnergies continued success in driving forward projects that combine technological excellence with environmental responsibility.
Thank you for having me, and it has been a privilege to share insights with you on the Middle East and North Africa region, and with such a distinguished audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The pleasure was all ours. And of course, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. New Al-Attiyah Foundation podcast will be released soon, so be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn